Hey, it's Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Thursday, March 16th. So the moon is going to be in Capricorn all day. We are very thankful for that, in case you didn't know, because it is offering us pretty much the only grounding energy that we got going on at the moment. And with all of this intense confusion, this wish-washiness, this back and forth, this conflict, these endings, these emotional outbursts, you best believe that the moon in Capricorn is doing the best job that he could possibly do on this solo adventure of trying to keep us grounded, trying to keep us in the moment, trying to keep us in alignment. Now, it's going to be very tough to do here today. We have 11 different aspects. 7 of them involve the moon in Capricorn, thankfully. But the other aspects, we got some things popping off. So just may I remind you, a little bit of a review. Go ahead, listen to the ascension forecast for this week, where I kind of did a rundown on all the craziness that we're currently sitting in, why we're sitting in it, what this does to our emotional, mental, physical, spiritual bodies, and what it is that we have to do to just hang in there, because as you know, we are closing the door on Pisces season. We are closing the door on the old calendar. We are closing the door on Venus's time in Aries energy. We got a lot going on. Special mention, yesterday we had our annual Sun and Neptune alignment. And of course, that was a very wish-washy type of energy. It should have triggered some kind of creative energy, some kind of inspiration, kind of lift our spirits a little bit, renew our faith, and kind of really show us a new level of awareness, a new layer, if you will, of enlightenment. We're finding meaning and purpose in some of the tougher situations that we've gone through. Pisces energy, of course, our spirituality, and we are bringing things full circle. So we're still very much within orb of having that particular aspect take place. Also, reminder, Mars squared off with Neptune just a couple of days ago, right? We had a direct aspect there. We're still within orb of that particular energy as well. So we're still accident prone. We're still low on motivation. We're having a hard time being inspired. We don't know where to take action. The confusion is definitely triple layered at this point. So today, Mercury is going to meet up with Neptune. And, you know, the Sun and Mercury, they will be having their own little cha-cha-cha alignment aspect here tomorrow, so the morning of the 17th. And they're both going to be squaring off with Mars. So this is a very intricate type of energy. We have ants in our pants. There is high levels of anxiety. The confusion is at its peak. But may I remind you that confusion is the precursor to clarity. The breakdown phase that we're currently in is the precursor to the breakthrough phase. So as conflicting as it may feel, as intense as it may feel, at the end of the rope as it may feel, you gotta hold on. Again, if you need a little bit of reassurance on why it is that you're currently feeling the way it is that you're feeling, listen to the ascension forecast for this week, and it's all right there for you. So we got a lot going on. That is an understatement. And as I pointed out in the ascension forecast for this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday is boom, boom, pow. Okay. And especially Friday is going to be a special kind of boom, boom. However, here, Thursday, we also have a couple of different aspects on top of the ones that I just mentioned, which is between Venus and Pluto. And that is significant for a couple of reasons, only because we came into 2023 with an aspect between Venus and Pluto, albeit it was a better aspect than the one popping off here today. But the reason why this is important is because Venus has this interaction with Pluto. Both of them are squaring off one another. They're both at 29 degrees. Venus is at 29 degrees in Aries energy. Pluto is at 29 degrees in Capricorn energy. They're in a disagreement with one another, creating a little bit of friction, a little bit of tension, just before Venus takes her throne, steps into her place of power in Taurus energy. There's an astro forecast that I put out about that. Go ahead, take a listen so that you know how this particular energy and aspect affects us. Take a listen to the March energy forecast, where I kind of give the overview and summarized version of all these different astro events taking place. We're moving into a very pivotal time. And so what I would say is that thankfully the moon in Capricorn is lending us this grounding energy. Let's hold on to dear life as best we can to this grounding energy. And when Venus moves into Taurus energy, that will provide us a little bit of stability as well. So let's jump into it. We have the moon in Capricorn. And again, reminder, moon in Capricorn, very connected to responsibility, very connected to wanting to take a good look at the to-do list, wrap up, tie up those loose endings. Again, we just had the last quarter moon take place in Sag energy. This was a peak perspective on seeing what is coming to an end, what is coming to a completion point. Now the moon in Capricorn swoops in, really bosses us up to take control, to be productive, right? In our physical realms, mostly because we need to keep the physical body busy in order for our emotions to naturally and organically unfold and get in alignment, which of course the moon in Capricorn doesn't really want to pay attention to emotion. That's why we throw ourselves into our physical realms with tasks, with chores, and to keep ourselves busy. Okay, so that's what we got going on. The moon in Capricorn energy is going to make a very positive interaction with first Mercury, who is in this Pisces energy, and then with Neptune, who is in Pisces energy. And reminder, you know, the Sun, Mercury, Neptune, they're all kind of cluster F together at this point. This is why we're having all of these different aspects, these different intensities. The moon interacting with Mercury in this way is essentially our heart and our head coming together. We're trying to get on the same page. Of course, the Mercury in Pisces energy doesn't feel so good. We're not really tapped into a lot of logic and practicality. We're having a hard time really putting into words and articulating what it is that's going on within us. We're having a hard time communicating, a hard time expressing ourselves. Don't worry about it. We will have Mercury move into Aries energy on the 19th, and that's when everything that we have been unable to actually make sense of will come out full blast. Okay, that's where the clarity is coming, but this is the confusion point. What we got going on, the positive energies that we got going on here, is that the Mercury aspect being in Pisces is very fluid. It's very imaginative, it's very creative, it's very intuitive as well. And whatever it is that's coming into our lower level intellect that Mercury rules over, we're able to actually not only internalize and process, but we're actually able to bring it to life if need be, due to the moon being in Capricorn energy. So there's a little bit of growth here in recognizing our plans for the future, the ideas that we want to pursue. When the moon interacts with Neptune, who is in its place of power in Pisces, this is where we really start thinking in imaginary land. Now, there's a lot of control, emotional control that the moon in Capricorn has over us. So we are getting permission from our emotional selves to kind of go into la la land, to lose ourselves in imaginary land. Why? Because we have to remind ourselves of the vision and the dream. Why? Because we have to remind ourselves why it is that we have to put up with the struggle, with the bullshit that we're currently kind of wading through. And it's because we want to see this end goal. So intuitively speaking, we're having a lot of insights right now, especially with new ideas, with new creative aspects that we are wanting to bring to life. The moon will make a positive aspect with the sun, because of course the Sun, Mercury, Neptune, all close together in this Pisces energy. When the moon and the sun come together, it's a beautiful energy. We have an overlap between where it is that we're coming from, what it is that we're closing the door on, what it is that we're wrapping up in order to shine a bright light, the sun, of course, in Pisces energy, on our dreams, on the vision, on the ideas, on the inspiration, on the growth that we are currently kind of in the process of doing, and where it is that we are setting our sights on moving forward, especially when it comes to bringing new creative projects into fruition. Again, that Capricorn energy, it's the manifesting energy of the zodiac, and emotionally speaking, we are being triggered and activated, inspired and motivated in all the right ways in order to really align with what it is that's going on in our inner realm, the visions, the dreams that we're being downloaded with, and what it is that we want to actually focus our concentration on and actually manifest in our physical realms. So now we're going to move into some not so nice feelings. And if you've been listening to me for any amount of time, you would know that every single time we have a huge leap forward, we're taking a couple of steps forward, that we're feeling good, we're feeling balanced, we're feeling grounded, we're feeling at peace, those darker force energies kick in and try to pull us on back. Well, this is a prime example of that. The moon is going to square off, get into the boxing ring with Chiron, the wounded healer, and then with Jupiter, the planet of growth, expansion, beliefs, abundance, and wisdom. Now, Chiron and Jupiter are sitting very close together in this Aries energy. As you may know, we just had this beautiful, very pivotal healing and transformative event between Jupiter and Chiron conjunct in this Aries energy for the first time in 50 years. And of course, that aspect took place on the 12th. So they're still sitting very close to each other in the zodiac wheel in this Aries energy. So we have the moon getting in the boxing ring with Chiron, the wounded healer. Suddenly, we are feeling a little bit Debbie Downerish. We're having a little bit of a negative Nancy narrative kick in. We are focused on all the things that could go wrong, all the blockages, all the challenges that are going to prevent us from actually getting to that dream, to that vision, to that inspiration, to that motivation that we just got downloaded with all of those beautiful aspects bumping into Neptune, Mercury, and the Sun. So Jupiter comes into the boxing ring. This is like a tag team action, if you will, for my wrestling fans out there. The moon squaring off, getting into the boxing ring with Jupiter is a little bit of friction because, of course, Jupiter in Aries energy is pushing for a huge amount of growth, for a huge amount of transformations. We want to put ourselves out there. We want to create opportunities for ourselves. We want a new version of ourselves to emerge. But of course, we've been having a lot of other aspects really pump the brakes on how much we're able to accomplish in a short amount of time. We will see a lot of that energy pick up when we move into Aries season. And of course, the sun being in Aries season, the new astrological calendar, the spring equinox bringing in new karmic life lessons and chapters, Jupiter is definitely going to make up for lost time there. But right now, being in the boxing ring, the Capricorn energy is trying to pump the brakes on the amount of growth that we're able to take in this moment. Why? Because this is not a time of action. This is a time of just sitting and marinating in this Piscean energy and allowing the emotions, the thoughts, the energies just to wash over us, crash upon us like the waves that we get in the middle of the ocean that Pisces season is and represents. So right now, it's like the Capricorn energy is focused on the past. What do we have to wrap up? What do we have to put an ending to? What is it that we're trying to close the door on? Very responsible, moving through the tasks and the chores, realizing what it is that we have to actually do because of our commitments, because of our obligations, before we can go and start creating new things in our lives. Again, we're in Pisces season. This is multiple endings, multiple closures, multiple chapters coming to an end in order to prepare us to move into a fresh, clean slate. So there is this friction because Jupiter, of course, is hella extra, hyping us up, wanting to make moves, wanting to put ourselves out there, wanting to create opportunities for ourselves. And the moon in Capricorn is like, listen, there's a time and a place for that, and it ain't here and it ain't on my watch. We got shit to do. We got to clean up this mess before we can get an additional party started. The moon will then semi-square, which is a little bit of a tension point, take a square, a full square where we're into the boxing ring, okay? That's a full-blown confrontation, if you will. A semi-square is like we're not in the boxing ring, we're standing outside of the boxing ring in a confrontation, wondering if we should get in and fight it out. So there is a little bit of a tension, there is a little bit of a conflict. With Saturn being the ruler over Capricorn energy, having an interaction with the ruler of the energy that the moon is in is always a little bit more intense. And of course, Saturn is in Pisces energy. This is a brand new life lesson. We're still in adjustment period here. We're not very far in this Piscean energy. And so Saturn being in Pisces is here to kind of, I'm going to say, demolish, destroy, destruct the foundations, the structures, the routines that are not supporting our lives, that are not happy, are not healthy, and sure as hell not strong enough to house the next chapter of the dreams, of the visions, of the ideas, of the growth, of the healing that we're about to move into. So emotionally speaking, the moon in Capricorn kind of squaring off with Saturn right now. Saturn in Pisces is kind of being pushed to be a little bit more fluid. And of course, Saturn doesn't like that. And Capricorn energy doesn't like to be fluid at all. There's a structure needed, right? Saturn rules over Capricorn energy. We need to be rigid in our structure, disciplined in our routines. We have to be strong enough to continue to build whatever needs to be built in our lives in order to align with our greater, grander plan. So there's a little bit of a tension point here because, you know, Saturn in Pisces is going through this I like to give the analogy, think of Pisces as the ocean. Think of Saturn right now as the earth, okay? Those waves are crashing upon the earth, and eventually those waves will erode the earth. But Saturn is standing strong right now, and he's trying to reinforce the earth, stabilize the earth so that, big chunks don't start falling off and get lost in the ocean. Emotionally speaking, we are really having to provide an extra amount of strength, an extra amount of discipline within us right now, especially seeing how we're at the ending of this astrological calendar, at the end of Pisces season, at the end of a lot of cycles and patterns closing. So there's this extra oomph where we have to kind of boss up. Stop crying about it. Yes, okay, get the tears out. That's a good release. But eventually you're going to have to put the big girl panties on, or big boy panties on, and we're going to have to get to work on kind of reconstructing what our lives look like here as we close out certain chapters and we prepare to open up new ones. The moon in Capricorn will trine, which is a beautiful energy, with Uranus, the great awakener, who is in Taurus energy. We get earth on earth here. This is what gives us the trine. Earth on earth works very well together. Emotionally speaking, Capricorn energy has us in an organized fashion, an organized system, structure of how it is that we're sorting through our emotions. Uranus energy comes at us with an unexpected event, an unexpected inflow of knowledge, of wisdom, of details, of information that essentially is going to change the game. Now, the beautiful thing here is that we're in earth energies, okay? So earth energies, even though they don't like to change much, if presented with the information, with the proof, the evidence that a change is needed, we will make that change even if we're hesitant to do so. But the change is going to be low and slow. Why? Because it's earth energy. We have to build one step on it, test its strength, evaluate that step, take a step back from that step, observe it from all different angles before we go ahead and make the additional step on top of the step we just made. Baby steps count. Baby steps matter. But this particular aspect is kind of shaking us up to see where it is in our physical realms, especially where routines, relationships, money matters, where things need to change, where we have to boss up, where we have to build something new, where it is that the renovation of our lives needs to be focused upon. So now we have Mercury in this Pisces energy, conjunct, sitting next to, bumping into Neptune in Pisces energy. So we have to unpack this just a tad. What we're going to find here, first of all, is hella confusion. What we are going to find here is a strong sense of intuition that we do not trust because we're too confused in order to trust it. What we are finding here is little dribs and drabs of creativity, of new ideas, of new insight coming into our lower level intellect that Mercury rules over. Again, I've been saying that this vibe is very Mercury retrograde-ish, and this would be a prime example of how disconnected we could possibly be from ourselves and from other people around us. Now, we have to be very careful with our words, with what we speak, with what we write, because they have a very powerful impact right now. And so, for better or for worse, you're adding a lot of power to your words, to your thoughts, and we have to be very, very careful about doing that. Now, there is going to be a very, very tough time concentrating on facts. Why? Because we're getting lost in a daydream. We're getting lost in visualizations. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. However, we could take it too far. It is about balance, right? But the confusion is very intense. And honestly, it's kind of needed because, again, the peak of the confusion comes right before the clarity, just like the greatest breakdown comes before the greatest breakthrough. And so what we need to understand is that we're not going to be thinking clearly. We can't communicate effectively. We're having a hard time expressing ourselves. We're having a hard time understanding what's going on within us, what's going on around us. And the want, need, and desire to figure it out now is pushing us into a state of agitation. And that is no good for anyone. And agitation and frustration are going to lead to anticipation and ants in our pants. And may I remind you that Mars, the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our desires, is also squaring off with Neptune. That was an aspect that started a couple of days ago that we're still in the orb with, and we're having a hard time settling down. There's this urgency, there's this aggressiveness, there's this competitive nature. We have all this energy. We don't know how to get it out. We have all these things going on that we can't really make sense of. It is a very turbulent time. So pace yourself, be patient with yourself and others as we are all going through this very heightened state of confusion together. The sun in Pisces squares off with Mars. So, we've been building towards this aspect. We're in the peak energy of this aspect. We will be within orb of this aspect. These are compounded aspects that are growing together and intensifying one another. And this particular aspect is kind of illuminating for us the edginess, the eagerness, the anticipation, the anxiousness that we got, the ants in our pants, the restlessness. Why? Because we're finally getting a taste of spring fever. We're finally starting to feel that spring equinox karmic shift coming at us. We want to do something. We want to get our energy out. We could be very defensive and argumentative because we're on edge and we're highly agitated. This, again, may I remind you that this week is intensified with silly little accidents that we can all really prevent if need be. That's why you need to be cautious and aware about what's going on around you. Our egoic reactions are definitely at the forefront. The sun, of course, our ego self, our life force energy, bumping into Mars, who, of course, is our physical energy, our drive, our passion, our aggression, our anger. Things could come out in a very not so nice way. We're kind of hype. We're kind of throwing a tantrum. There is just a lot of intensity that comes with the sun shining a bright light on where it is that we need to heal, where it is that we need to go with the flow, where it is that we have to kind of come up with a new vision and a dream. And then you get all this confrontation, which the Pisces energy avoids at all costs, with Mars being in Gemini energy, just restless as F, wanting to take action, wanting to get out of the head space, wanting to get out of the mental plane, therefore being very, very abrupt, very straightforward, very blunt with our interactions. And of course, that has the potential to make a very serious mess. Then we have Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, work, pleasure, money, in this Aries energy at the 29th degree, wrapping things up, getting into the boxing ring with Pluto, the great transformer himself, in Capricorn energy at the 29th degree. They are getting in the boxing ring. They are fighting it out. This is a lot of tension. This is a lot of intensity. This is a lot of, yes, passion, but it also could be rage. And let me just remind you, there's a very thin line between passion and anger, okay? And we have to be very careful with how it is that we allow this to manifest. So this is a very challenging aspect, and this is going to make for another potentially, I'm going to say, potential tantrum or emotional outburst, if you will. We have the tendency to not be rational in our heart space, be very forceful with our emotions, with our expression, even though that we're not expressing things right or correctly or confidently or articulating it well. Again, think Mercury, okay? We're having a hard time, but yet we're going to throw this little bit of a tantrum. We're wrestling with our insecurities. We're fighting our fears, our doubts. We are questioning everything. Now we are really kind of fearful about walking away from all the chapters, all the endings that we are going through and have been processing. And this is like, just keep in mind, 29th degree. These two guys are at 29 degrees, the critical crisis degrees. There's like this urgency where we're pushing forward. We know that we should be pushing forward, but all of a sudden we turn around. We start looking at all the things that we're leaving behind. And even though we know that we need to leave them behind, suddenly there's this over emotional attachment that we have. And so this is creating an honest, chaotic shit show within us because we see where the change is needed in our relationships, in our worth and value, within ourselves, in our bank account. Suddenly, there's a power struggle going on between our heart and our head, between our old lives and the new life, between just what has to end in order for new things to begin. Consider the fact that Pluto, yes, he's the great transformer, but through a death in order for a rebirth, a resurrection to happen. We are in the final days of the death, of the endings, of the closure of this calendar. The rebirth, the resurrection, the renewal is coming on the 20th when the sun moves into Aries season and the spring equinox kicks off. That's the new year. And so right now it's like, oh my goodness, we're finally realizing what it is that we're walking away from, what it is that we're closing the door on. And this is creating a lot of tension. And now suddenly there are more obstacles, there are more challenges that are kind of amplifying and intensifying our fears, our doubts, our insecurities. We are suspicious about everything. We think that we're doing everything wrong. There is this possessiveness that comes out of Venus, like we're holding on to the old for dear life, even though she's just preparing to take her throne, to take her place of power in this Taurus energy. We're afraid of losing. We're afraid of being wrong. We're worried about everything. This is super intense. It feels like everything is trying to poke the bear, like everything is trying to provoke us to lose our shit. And it is. We're at our breaking point. The breaking point has to happen in order for the breakthrough point to happen. So we got to hang out. We got to be tough. We got to boss up. This is a trigger. This is an activation. Lean into it. Ask it what it wants it to teach you. Ask what it is that you need to close the door on. This is a very revealing part of the self-healing path that we're all on, because we are essentially standing in the doorway looking back at the life that we're no longer aligned with, that we know we have to close the door on, but for some reason now the sentiments are coming out in us and we're getting all choked up and verklempt on what it is that we're actually closing the door on. Even though walking through the doorway into the future, it's a beautiful thing. There's a light shining there that we haven't seen in a long time. It's hitting us tenfold on what it is that we're actually walking away from. So we sit in this energy for like 4 hours, and then Venus goes ahead and she moves into Taurus energy. This is the grounding energy we need, but granted, it's going to emotionally feel like we hit a brick wall. We need to slow our asses down from that fiery, ramped up, passionate, semi-angered energy of Aries that Venus was currently in. So you will notice that you will reach a very high point of emotion where you are very triggered and activated, and then early evening, suddenly it just stops. It just calms down, and we move inward and we become a little bit more quiet, and our surroundings look different. We have an aha moment. We feel a shift in our headspace, shift in our heart space. We understand what it is that we just went through, and now we're trying to adopt the attitude of gratitude for the process that we just went through and for the new territory, the new reality that we're about to embark on.